so we're going to move on to the next presentation. A wonderful PR expert called Rachel White, who's actually Midlands now.
Yes, big up the Midlands.
Who's worked on loads of campaigns, but I'll let her take you through the session. Over to you, Rachel.
Thanks, Yao. Hi, everyone. I think my session's going to follow on really nicely from Tash's, actually, because obviously PR sort of comes under the marketing umbrella, so a lot of the stuff that she touched on, hopefully we'll get into in a bit more detail. So yeah, my session today is about music campaigns for artists, but I guess if you're also working with artists, like if you're interested in managing and that sort of thing, then I guess it would be relevant as well. It's kind of all about how to do it for yourself. I've been running my own PR agency for 10 years, which is called Brick. And I also now run a platform called House of DIY, which is basically a platform for people to do their own PR on their own terms by themselves. So I do things like this and workshops, and also working with people one-on-one to sort of give them the tools and the templates and all the things they need, particularly sort of new artists not really knowing where to start, so that they can do their own PR and not pay out the costs that involves taking out PR. And although I started out working with a lot of independent musicians, and obviously, like I said, when I started out, it was 2010 when I started freelancing and 2013 when I started my business. So from a PR point of view, everything's changed so much in that time, which I'll talk a little bit about. And my roster's changed quite a bit over that time as well. So originally I worked with independent artists, sort of very grassroots artists that were coming up through hip hop and grime, and trying to get signed by labels, or it was that time just before people were getting signed, so they needed help with PR and writing press releases and all that kind of stuff. So I have clients like Getz and Speech to Bell, but also now I work with events and venues, things like Roundhouse Rising and 51st State Festival, and really enjoy a really dynamic roster now. I'm really lucky. But saying all that, PR has changed so much. And I guess, seeing as you've just had that session with Tash, for you guys, what do you think PR is? What would you say PR is if someone asked you?
Public relations.
Correct. And what's public relations?
But then you did it.
Okay, anyone?
I think when I think of PR, I think about politicians and being able to spin a good story.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah, you're right. PR is essentially storytelling. And what you're trying to do with PR is you want other people to say how good you are instead of you saying how good you are. So if you think of like a poster for an album, that's you putting artwork together, kind of like Tash is doing with the marketing. You're putting that artwork together, you're putting the copy on there, you're saying what's great about the album. Whereas an album review is someone completely unbiased coming on board and saying, right, well, this is what I think about this album. That's what PR is. And what you're hoping to get from that are obviously amazing reviews, which is never guaranteed. And that's the thing with PR, is that you're putting your art out there and your story and your music out there. And it's for other people to sort of tell you what they think of it, and put it on whatever platforms they have in order to promote it. So it's kind of taking it out of your hands. You don't have much control over it. Whereas marketing is very controlled because you're controlling the message the whole time. So the key with PR is trying to keep your messaging consistent so that other people then repeat those messages back to you. And we'll talk a bit about how you might do that in this session. So a few things to know about PR right now, that more and more people are doing a do-it-yourself approach, because obviously a lot more artists have access to digital tools and the ability to put music out themselves, but don't necessarily have the budget for pluggers and for PR people, etc. So a lot of people are just trying to find the tools or teach themselves how they can do their own PR campaigns. And that doesn't mean it needs to be this massive, complicated, overwhelming thing. It can be a really simple sort of, list of actions that you do every time you release music, that you can go, right, I need to do some PR stuff. Where's the list of stuff that I need to do? And you can just work your way through that list and feel confident about doing it. So it's free, which means it's like I said, it's earned coverage, but that means you can't control it at all. So you can put an album out and all of your reviews could be terrible and there's nothing you can do about it. Even if you paid for a PR person to service it for you, if someone doesn't like it and they're going to say they don't like it, there's not a lot you can do. However, on the flip side of that, obviously if someone loves it, that's, you know, one of the most incredible sort of co-signs you can get is, say, like a big media platform saying how much they love your album. And there aren't any set rules. So in terms of building a PR campaign around music and being a music artist, you can kind of create a campaign that works for you. And I would kind of say to anyone that I worked with who was trying to do PR for themselves is that you want to kind of work to your strengths. So you want to do stuff that you're confident with, and also your availability. So what you've actually got time to commit. Because obviously if you're doing your own PR and you're an artist, you're creative, you're doing recording, you're doing everything yourself. So you kind of want to make PR as manageable as you can, because I think the thing about PR is that it just scares people. And people don't really know how to do it, what to expect, or also how to leverage it. So if you get, you know, a really good piece of coverage, or you get a good interview, or whatever it might be, how do you make that bit of coverage or that review or that interview sort of go the extra mile for you, rather than just doing it and then that's it, you did it, you forgot about it. So this session will go into some of those areas, and we can talk a little bit about how you can create a campaign that works best for you. So I've listed a few activities that a PR person might do. So from my point of view, I specialize in digital PR. So a lot of the work I do with artists and venues, etc., will be focused on digital magazines, publications, blogs, playlists, YouTube channels. There's lots of crossover with social, as you might imagine, but also social is still very much its own thing, because I guess it's quite complicated, but you have your own social channels that you put your own content out of. But then there are social channels that are owned by publications or brands, where you might go and do an interview, for example, on Instagram Live or something. So there's a slight crossover, but essentially social is its own thing, and PR sort of complements it if it's done well together. But there are other kinds of PR people, like, you know, radio pluggers, people that work in TV. But we're going to concentrate on sort of digital stuff today. So some key activity would be reading and following music sites, social channels, podcasts and publications. And again, that are sort of relevant to you. So we're trying to make it as manageable as we can and as targeted as we can in terms of the kind of PR that you want to do for yourself as an artist, or for an artist that you're working with. And one of the ways to do that is perhaps looking at other artists that are perhaps a similar genre, they're at a similar kind of level, and you can look at what kind of PR activity they're doing. So even just by Googling them, you can see what kind of magazines are writing about them, what kind of blogs are covering them, or covering their music videos, or interviewing them. And that can be a really good starting point without it all feeling a bit like, I have no idea where to start. Another thing you can do is, in Spotify, you can do the same kind of thing. So if there's an artist that you look up to, or you follow, or is similar to you, you can see what Spotify playlist they're featured on by going onto their page. So again, it can be a good point of starting out when you're looking for different playlists to target. So we kind of talked about just now PR being sort of story spinning or storytelling, and that's kind of what it is. So as a PR, you'll be coming up with ideas about how to tell the story of an artist, which can be done in lots of different ways. But if we're thinking about PR activity and PR content online, we might be thinking about a playlist of music that inspires you right now, or inspired you to write your album, or of artists that you admire. If it's an interview, it could be about something quite specific, as in something that you're releasing, or it could be something about a topic you feel really passionate about, or another artist that you feel passionate about. So come up with different creative ideas to tell your story. And you want to apply that to as many different channels as are relevant to you. So For example, you want to think about how you might tell your story through interview, or whether you want to use like podcasting or YouTube channels, and think about how that story would come across. Another big part of PR is writing press releases and email pitches, whether you're sending them to journalists or writers or producers and DJs. You don't always necessarily need a press release at the outset. A press release is essentially like a news announcement. So if you're just starting out, one of the best things you can put together, which we'll look at in the next section, is a press kit, which we'll go into some detail of, but it's very useful to have a press kit because pretty much anyone can have one. And it's a really good starting point for sending information out to journalists, writers, producers, etc., with all of your details in there and your content. And when you do want to write an email pitch or a press release, if you've already got a press kit there, the majority of the work is done for you, which again we'll talk about. And PRs also work within a larger marketing team. So I would perhaps work with someone like Tash, who was overseeing all marketing for an artist, and I might be plugged in just to work on the PR aspect, where she could be working with other people that are doing TV plugging or live booking, etc. So these are sort of the key activities that a PR person does on a day-to-day. So some starting points to think about. Knowing and understanding your audience and not trying to reach everyone is sort of a main and really sort of key thing to get your head around. I've worked with loads of artists that have said, when I've asked them, who is your audience, who's your target audience, and they'll say, my music is relevant to everybody. Everybody could like my music. And that's just, you're giving yourself the hardest task by trying to reach everybody. So I think it's really important that you can try and understand your audience. And that doesn't necessarily mean, age, sex, location. It means what sort of habits they have in terms of listening to music, what they care about, what they're into, what their interests are. I think can tell you a lot about how to reach an audience. So like I said before, great starting point, Googling and following similar artists for ideas and inspiration. And don't just do this once or twice. Do it every time you release music or think about doing a new PR campaign, because essentially things are changing so fast all the time that it's really important to sort of stay ahead of the curve. And one of the things that I do as a PR person all the time is research my contacts and see what new websites have popped up or new writers are writing for this publication. And that is a full-time job in itself. So trying to stay on top of what the best targets might be for you for any given time. A good way of doing that is just, Googling a recent campaign that you've seen. And creating key messages to stay consistent. So this consistency that I talked about at the beginning is so important because, like we said, you can't control your message. You can send your press release out, you can send your music out to people and ask them to listen to it or write about it, but what they say is kind of up to them. So if your messaging is consistent across your social channels, your press kit or your biography, whatever content you put out there, it really resonates with other people. So if you're a female fronting a pop punk band and you really care about the environment and you're also a part-time pro skater from Brighton, those are some key messages that you might want to put consistently in lots of the things that you put out about yourself in terms of your bio or your press release, or if you're telling someone about yourself. Key messages also just really help you when you're doing interviews, for example, or if you're networking or you're going to an event and someone says to you, hey, tell me about yourself. And a lot of people, people like me, but also definitely artists sort of go, where do I start? And you just sort of blank and then you don't know what to say or where to start. If you're using the same key messages over and over again, and it's become quite intentional that you're using these messages, and it's how you want to communicate yourself and what you're about and what's important to you, you start doing this regularly, it really helps you communicate those messages about yourself and communicate with others really consistently and intentionally. And that then helps other people remember you and also can then pass those messages on to someone else. Oh, who are you just talking to? Oh, that's this artist. He's a rapper from Manchester. He's just played at this local gig. Oh, okay, cool. So try and come up with key messages to help you stay consistent and also help you create your story. So I've got 5 ways of doing PR for yourself that anybody can start to do straight away. So having a press kit ready to go before contacting any press. So if you're putting a single out, let's say, and you're like, oh, I'm going to send some emails out to some DJs, or I'm going to, contact some playlist editors. Before you do any of that, before you do any kind of outreach, try and get all of the storytelling that's associated with you and your music in one place. And this press kit can work for sending it out to media, it can work for sending it out to people that might want to book you for a show, to a potential manager that you're interested in contacting. It's just a way of keeping all of your PR assets in one place, and it all tells your story. So you want to use a live link, so a Dropbox folder or a Google Drive link or something like that, and put everything in one folder so that you're not attaching loads of stuff when you're emailing people. So what you want to put there is your biography, which should be short. I had a consultation with an artist the other day who just needed some help really refining what she was doing, because her press kit was great and it was very, very simple. And her biography was maybe 4 or 5 lines. It was really short, but it was just really good, really sort of consistent and snappy and really interesting, and just told me about her in like just a few lines. I think the worst biographies are the ones that go on and on and on. And I heard Tash said, we don't need to know about all of your upbringing and this and that. We just need to know about you right now. And if that includes a little bit about what inspired you, or why you started making music, or why you write, what you want to write about, then that's great. But try and keep it concise. Press images are really important, but again, you can take good press images on your phone. You don't need a photographer to come and do that for you. Just take good images that you think show off your personality and your brand. Try and make sure it's well lit, and also try and ensure you've got a mix of both landscape and portrait shots as well. And you maybe need, 3, 4, 5. That's all you need. You don't need any more than that. Logos. So not everyone has a logo, but for an artist, it can be a good thing to have. Again, it's about that consistency and putting the stamp everywhere. A press release, you might want a press release if you are releasing a track and you want to talk a little bit about that, include a release date or any shows that you're doing. And then any visual content or audio content as well. So you might have links to MP3s in there. If you're a DJ or producer, mixes that you've got, links to videos that are sort of hosted so that people can just click and watch them. Anything else in there, you can just put in to tell your story. When it comes to whether you include a press release or not, again, don't overthink it. The press release can be 2 paragraphs, and the first paragraph can just be a little bit about your track. So this artist is releasing this new single on this date. It'll be available across these platforms, and it's about XYZ. And then the second paragraph can be your lifted biography, or a little bit of your biography at the bottom. That's all you need. That can be your press release. It's just that a press release is just angled on a news story. So we'll just it will just lead with the single or whatever it is that you're releasing. And you could pop links in there to the music and when it's being released. That's it. That's all a press release is. So again, you don't have to overthink it. It's just basically serving people information in the simplest way that you can. And I've put the link at the end of this, but I've got, on my House of DIY website, I've got free templates, so you can use those if you want to as well. So I think always a good starting place is to start local. And I know a lot of people just want to jump straight ahead when they're starting out and they want to go national. A lot of them want to just go international. Starting local is such a good place to start, especially if you're new to PR and you're not that confident yet and you need a way to develop it. All of your local magazine channels, whether it's radio or local TV or local newspapers and music and what's on pages, all they want to do is talk to local people doing stuff. And if you've ever read one of your local papers, they don't need to be doing very much. So if you're a musician that's actually releasing music and gigging locally, you're someone that will be perfect to talk to a local title. Most cities as well have, cultural and artsy and music titles, as well as sort of the generic newspapers, etc. So it's a good way to start. So it's a good way of practicing speaking to the media. It's a good way to start practicing getting your key messages across and pitching yourself. And the thing is with local publications, the majority of the time, they just want to tell really positive stories about people, especially in music and arts in their area. So you know that it's not going to be a hard thing to do. It's going to be a pretty simple, what area did you grow up in? How did you get started in music? Where are you playing next? How can people find out about you? And it's a really good way to start, a really good way of building connections as well, because the thing is with local press, once they build a bit of a rapport, if they say they're doing an article in a few weeks' time on a more topical piece on the arts scene in your area, they might go, oh, I spoke to that musician the other week. I'll see if they want to give me a comment about this. So it's a good place to start. It's also good because when you're pitching for that next level, national, international, whatever, you've got that grassroots building there. If people Google you, something's coming up. And local and regional websites usually have really good SEO, so you're bound to come up. And starting to put things in your press kit and your press releases and being able to name check, I got support from BBC Introducing, which is obviously a great local regional support platform. And whatever your local title is, or some more sort of niche music titles in your area, it's a way to start building up those name checks that you can add into press releases and your biographies and things like that. So going niche. So again, don't try and aim straight away for those big platforms or those big radio stations or those big DJs. Work your way up, sort of take it a step at a time. And there are lots of positive ways of doing this, reasons for doing this, sorry. So there is such a massive industry now for niche music titles, like thousands of playlists and blogs and publications and social platforms of people that are being really specific about the kind of music that they want to cover. And because of that, you can hone in on these platforms and these people that will really get you and what you're about and what your music is. And there are a lot of people that, don't like to be boxed in genre-wise or are quite experimental and struggle to explain their music, especially to more mainstream titles. There are platforms out there for you. There are people that want to listen to your music and are interested. It's just about finding those platforms and engaging with them. And what normally happens as well, because these writers will be really into or already into the kind of music you're making or the kind of scene that you're in, it will lead to a lot more interesting and thoughtful conversations and connections. A lot of the bigger platforms, even now, mostly will just copy and paste press release content. You want to try and find the people that really want to get into your story and your music. And those niche publications, although they're smaller, have such a intentional, concentrated audience that for you, when you're trying to build that target audience, it's a perfect place to start. Skill sharing. So I guess this is happening more and more, but when you're trying to get yourself out there and you're trying to engage with platforms that are sort of that next level, what are some different ways that you can engage with them aside from just sending them a music release or saying, can you cover this or can you review that? And a lot of the time, a lot of publications are looking for their own bespoke content. So could you share something? Could you create some content that you could place with other platforms, perhaps as part of your marketing activity? Can you create a video or a mix or a how-to video? What kind of content could you create? Could you host a workshop? Could you create a podcast on something you're interested in, or some sort of YouTube series that touches upon something you're passionate about? people are interested in you and what drives you and what encourages you to make music, as well as your music. So by doing this kind of content, you're able to tell more of your story and release more of those key messages that aren't just pinned to you releasing music. So think about sort of wider in terms of what you can share. What could that be? And then what kind of platforms can you try and engage with in terms of getting that kind of content on those platforms? I think more and more people are doing this, and especially across social. A lot of people do it anyway. There are a lot of people that go on TikTok and share music they've created, or create some sort of series that works alongside like soundtracking videos. A lot of people have done, I've noticed, that work really well. So have a think about what that might be from your point of view. And doing it your way. So it's not always easy adding PR to your to-do list. Like I said, it's a lot on top of everything else, which is why it's important to work to your strengths and prioritize. So what I mean by that is, if someone says to you, oh, you're going to do some PR around your release, think about what kind of PR you want to do. So some people just focus, for example, on radio. They just want radio play, which is fine. That is PR, so you can just focus on that. Some people don't think radio counts as much anymore and wouldn't want to do radio, but would want to just focus on Spotify playlisting, for example. That's also PR, that's also fine. You don't have to do all of it and everything for it to be a successful PR campaign. You need to do what you think works for you and your audience, which is why it's so important to work out who that is. And if you don't know who that is and you're starting out completely fresh, then you need to think about how you get to that audience through the kind of PR that you're going to do. So if you're working towards getting people that still listen to radio, because that's where you think your audience is, then radio is going to be the way you want to go. So really think about the kind of PR you think works best for you and concentrate on that. Don't try to do everything, because it will be overwhelming and it will become too much. And also, once you start doing some PR and you start getting a few things, you have a few successes, it then becomes a lot easier to sort of snowball into adding other things on, and you become more confident. And also, once you start, putting in your press release that you've had support from BBC Introducing and a local title, and you did a skill sharing video for this YouTube channel, once you start adding those little names in, those name checks, it becomes so much easier to build on that. It's just getting those first building blocks in there. Don't skip too many steps ahead. Just start where you're at. So I want to ask you guys how you feel about that, I guess, and also, have you done PR before? Is anyone sort of putting music out to the stage where they've done PR or they've worked with PR? And then we'll have time for you to talk to me.
I do my press releases and stuff like that. My bio is currently like 4 pages long. So,
oh, is it? Okay, you need to cut the bio down.
Yeah, super long. But yeah, like I've done lots of I've been on not one extra, the introducing one. So I'm working towards trying to get on the other ones now.
Okay, great. So you're building your way.
Yeah.
You're trying to build your way up.
Yeah, I've been in a lot of the local newspapers and magazines.
Amazing.
And it's just, yeah.
So does.
But I haven't written them down.
Okay.
Which is the part that I need to do.
And what's really useful, actually, when you start getting bits of press, even if it's just local stuff, whatever it is, have you got like a page on your web, like a press page or a press highlight on Instagram or anything like that? Like, start trying to put this in people's faces, basically. So have a page on your website which is, as seen in, and then logos just links or logos or screenshots.
Yeah.
Because again, that counts for something when someone goes on your page. So you've pitched yourself for something, someone goes on your page or your Instagram or something and sees that you've already been co-signed by XYZ, it really helps. So to get those next targets that you've got. So really use them. Don't just do an interview or get a radio play and then don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Try and leverage it. I say that's one of the key things to do. And definitely cut the bio down.
Yeah, I laughed when you said it.
Yeah.
My bio was so long. Yeah.
Anyone else want to share about PR?
I made like a EPK, like EP, and like a couple singles before that.
Yeah.
Pretty well, like bio is not too strenuous. So it's not too big words in it or anything like that.
Yeah. Easy to read.
It's like 5 pictures, I think.
Yeah, that's good.
I haven't looked at it for a while and it's updated. But yeah, I like contact, email, and numbers and stuff like that.
And did you reach out to people with it? And
Yeah. I got like a few like blogs and things of that nature.
Amazing. And what did you do when you got that blog support? What have you done with those? Have you done anything with it? Did you
in terms of-
screenshot it or save the links or?
Oh yeah, like I reposted it, shared it around.
Did you add any of those? Oh, good. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Did you add any of it back into your bio? So once people
Yeah.
start, oh, you did.
Yeah.
Amazing. So if you get support from people, first thing you do is put the name check those people straight in your biography or your press release to say that's where your support's coming from, and that's what helps to snowball it.
Thank you.
That's cool. Did you have any questions about any stuff that came up in this?
I don't know, it's really well explained, straightforward. So
Okay, cool.
appreciate it more for me. But, yeah, thanks.
Well, it sounds like you're doing the right stuff, so well done.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
So this month, so I've done a few PR campaigns and really want to take it to like, I guess, the next level of like doing DIY campaigns and also working with PR companies.
Yeah.
The biggest time drag I find is like finding email addresses. That can be a whole sport in and of itself. So I was just wondering if there's any software or websites that maybe PR professionals themselves use. I imagine they'd be paid or subscription based, that you would recommend that have contact details for relevant journalists and writers
Yes.
to save all of that time.
Yeah, so there are professional software tools like I think Cision. I used Cision when I worked at an agency. It's so expensive though, and a lot of the time the stuff can be out of date. What I use personally is Twitter, or X as we now call it, because it works so well as an address book. Because I wonder if I can show you on here.
I think Instagram and LinkedIn are pretty good as well.
Yeah, LinkedIn is good, isn't it? 1 second, let me show you. So when I need a email address, so let's say you want, I don't know, NME. So, no, sorry, NME. And then want to search people. And then anyone that works at that title will have it listed here in their bio somewhere.
Great.
And then you'll find loads of other useful people just off the back of that. And then usually, so here's the news editor, for example. And then usually what you can do, if they don't have their email in their bio, which a lot of them will, but if they don't, I could then take their name, oops, and then I just search email. And then usually people will already have asked for it.
Right.
And then you'll find it somewhere where they've replied and said, yeah, there's my email. I won't scroll through everywhere, but that is, most of the time, that is how I find email addresses.
Amazing. That's really helpful.
Literally for anyone and everything.
Yeah.
I use Twitter.
Is muckrack real? Because that is the thing that always comes up the first. Does that work, or is that just kind of like one of those?
It's so dated. It's just,
Okay.
yeah. I just don't trust it for information.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll go to this. Thank you. That's really helpful.
And then obviously you want to start following. If you do use, say, let's say you use Twitter, then follow as many editors, writers that are relevant to you as possible. and then it will start suggesting people that are similar. So I follow loads of journalists that I didn't even know existed because they just are suggested to me all the time that have could become really useful contacts because it obviously knows my algorithm now. I just want to follow editors and writers. And then a lot of the time it's, there are lots of call outs on Twitter for people wanting, I'm updating my Spotify playlist this week. Shoot me over any music releases you think I should be listening to. So for me, it's the platform that I concentrate on, even if all I really do from my account is retweet stuff. But for me, I just use it as that address book.
Perfect.
Yeah. Oh, good. Any other questions about the content?
Do you have any do's and don'ts for logos?
Do's and don'ts for logos. I'd say just keep it simple. If you really want to have one, and I guess not everyone needs one. I think a lot of people now just choose a font and they stick with that font. And obviously with platforms like Canva, you can just be so creative just with a font as well. And just keep it simple. Make sure it's if it's a word that is easily readable, and just make sure it's something that can be used consistently over a lot of different platforms, I'd say. But I've noticed a lot more people, I don't know if you've noticed this, Yao, I've heard a lot more people are just using fonts and not creating images. Yeah.
In the last 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not necessary. And again, don't pay anyone to do it. Just do it yourself if you're going to do it. Whew. Anyone else? It feels so weird to be sat with my back to everyone. So I guess my final takeaway would just be that doing it for yourself, I think, is such an important thing. Even if at some point you decide you need a PR agency, just you understanding what it is you're paying your PR person to do is really important, I think. Not so that you can say to them, I know you should have been doing this and you haven't done it and da-da-da. I mean, maybe to say that, but just so that you can appreciate the value of what you're paying for. Because so many artists will pay for a PR person, have no clue what they're doing or what to expect, and then either feel that they haven't gotten what they thought they were getting for their money, or don't want to do it again because they didn't understand what was being done in the first place. So just having an understanding and knowing who that audience is and where you're comfortable with PR as well. Like lots of people don't like talking on radio, they don't like talking on TV. If that's the case, don't make that part of your PR. Just stick to what you're comfortable with. Because if you're doing activities that you're uncomfortable with, you won't do it. You'll have all of the best intention, but you won't do it. And putting yourself out there as an artist is important, but you need to be doing it in a way that you're comfortable with. It's like I'm not a social media manager, but it's like using socials. You don't need to be across every social channel. You need to be across the ones you're comfortable with and do them really well. And again, go with that quality over quantity approach with it. Is there anything else? Where are we for time? Have I gone through that really quick?
No, you are spot on.
Oh, am I? Amazing. Oh, well, thank you so much then.
Okay, so we're actually back on time. So anyone wants a quick break? Maybe 10 minutes. Start back at 10 to. We're going to do the next panel with Kimmer, which is about being an independent artist and how you make the best of it. And then after that, if anybody wants to get feedback on their songs, we will work that out technologically and do that. Okay?